Most chefs dream about five-star reviews. Joe Robbins is out here serving meals to national leaders, and he's building a kitchen from scratch, one plate at a time. Today, we ride.
Workhorses win, yeah, we don't fold. Might move slow, but we strike gold. Steel in our veins, fire in our soul. Ain't in it for the shine, we're in it for control. While they flex for the gram, we break and then run the whole race, start to end.
Welcome to Workhorses Win, the show for grinders, builders, and the spirit of Workhorse Nation. I'm your host, Charlie Longo. Let's saddle up. Today's saddle up shout out goes to the chefs, smokers, and pit masters, hustling pop ups and borrowed kitchens, backlots, and wherever they can sling a plate. Our guest today is Chef Joe Robbins, proud member of the Penobscot Nation, James Beard semifinalist, and a man who's been proving that great food isn't about city size, it's about heart and hustle. From Bissell Brothers and Milo to national events in DC, Joe's been cooking history into every meal. And while the build out of Marsh Island Kitchen in Hampden continues, he's out there grinding through pop-ups, feeding people one brisket at a time. Hey Joe, how you doing?
Good, can't complain.
Yeah. This what's new with you? Anything cool?
Yeah, starting a restaurant along with the Sweat family, who's also owners of Marsh Island Brewing. So,
Yeah.
opening another location in Hampden, Maine, which used to be the old Kiwanis building.
Yeah.
Trying to be a little bit of the center of the community around here.
That's awesome, bud. Yeah, so we'll get more to that a little later. But let's talk about you, because I think you're kind of the driving force, other than the sweats, behind this whole project. But you know, uh, obviously, you are a renowned chef. But when you were a little baby, like you weren't making bologna and cheese sandwiches or anything like that. At least not that I know of. But when did that journey, your food journey, kind of start?
Pretty young. I always liked to cook. I think it never seemed like a career path. Even like when I first graduated high school, a few friends that I had might have worked in restaurants and done that kind of thing, but I always looked at it as like that's not a sustainable salary, or it wasn't something that I was trying to like earn a living with. So I never really paid a lot of attention to it. I just always looked at it as something like I think everybody has this career that they look at from a distance, like, oh, I could do that if I had to or if I wanted to, but I'm stuck doing this job because it
Uh,
pays the bills. Or I think almost everybody's got a fantasy type. And in high school, I was an athlete, so I think a couple years out of high school, I certainly missed the competitive drive that I had, and I didn't realize. I guess at the time, I probably didn't realize that was one of the bigger reasons that I probably really enjoyed the kitchen once I got into it and realized like, oh, this whole running around thing and trying to beat the clock and like all those things are all very sports like.
mhm.
Um, and then as I progressed in the kitchens and stuff, then I started to realize, oh, this is just like when I was playing basketball. This is just like when I was running track. This is everything that I missed for a few years out of high school. So
Nice.
caught the bug real young. I think I was 21, 22, maybe my first restaurant job, and really haven't looked back since. So,
Nice. Well, what position did you play in basketball?
so I played. It's for the school. I played like forward center, but for like AAU teams and bigger teams, I was always a guard. So
Nice. Yeah, I think the NBA draft's coming up here, and that fella from Newport,
yeah,
Cooper's gonna, hopefully do pretty well, So,
yeah. I think
uh,
that everybody's on the Cooper lottery right now at this
yeah,
point. I don't think we know it's NBA draft or just who gets Cooper.
right. Hopefully,
Best
it's
of
the
luck to him.
Celtics. You never know, But so other than that, was there a specific no, moment that you knew food was like more than a job?
I wouldn't say it was a specific moment. Definitely growing up, like food, that was when your whole family gets together. There were definitely the more positive times. So I
Hmm.
think it always just, as a younger kid, I definitely could put away a lot of food and not feel the results at all. So I think I always had um, a passion for it, but I guess I didn't understand to what degree till I got older and realized, when you move out and your parents aren't cooking for you anymore, or your grandmother's not making you dinner, and you start having to do it, and you realize, oh, this was a lot of work for all those people and that kind of thing. And I had a great uncle who also was probably the only person in my family that was a male that cooked
Hmm.
and did very well. He was actually he cooked in the Navy some. So I
Nice.
think seeing somebody that was very efficient in it and very good at it also, again, back then I probably didn't realize
Yeah.
that until I got older, that like what I was seeing all the time. So that was also a big eye opener for me, I think, too.
Yeah. Did did your family, maybe your uncle, pass down any specific recipes or anything like that that you still eat? My
No.
grandma did like a broccoli bake, and I still love
Oh
that,
yeah.
So
I wouldn't say any specific recipes. I think it was always like my uncle was a big guy. He would always do like baked beans,
hmm
bean whole beans. My on the other side, like my father's side of the family was all, they hunted, they fished, so going and cooking deer meat or cooking salmon or trout
hmm
or any of those things really kind of opened up my eyes to that. But no, I mean, even to this day, I kind of detest recipes a little bit. I think it's most food. I mean, everybody says baking is chemistry, but like I bake all the time and I don't use a recipe. It's so much more about experience and about getting in the kitchen,
Yeah.
knowing what your ingredients are and what they aren't. Um, so yeah, I'm much more of a. I would rather have like people working with me that just know their shit, and get
hmm
it moving, versus just somebody that can like, oh well, I memorized this recipe and I've done the same recipe 10,000 times, so I've got it. Because food's different. A tomato is different from one month to the other.
hmm
All this stuff is just knowing how to use it and when to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there like an early dish, that you made, like maybe you knew you had it when you made that mac and cheese that was awesome, or something you were really proud of?
Ah, an early dish. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it was anything specific. I think it was just like because my early cooking days, it was uh, a lot of just being able to get a lot of orders out quickly. You show
Hmm.
up to work, there's a line out the door, and all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, you've somehow fed 20 people.
Right.
I think it was much more the physical game in the beginning, and then
Hmm.
as I got learning more and more and have a lot more confidence, especially from like ownership of restaurants, that you can take X amount of dollars this week and invest it into this product, and we can turn that into more like that's when I really started to look at it as a business and look at it as um, how much the ingredients matter, how much the farm that we get it from matters.
Hmm.
So I don't know if there's any specific dish. This new restaurant, everything is very much based on beef. We're
Hmm.
partnered with Pineland Farms, so
Yep.
we're going to do a lot of steaks, a lot of burgers, a lot of some chicken dishes, but the beef is really where we're going to try and focus the most. I feel like the area at one time used to have a fair amount of privately owned steakhouses that were very good for their time.
Yeah.
And we really want to bring that kind of dining back to the area because I don't think it
Hmm.
really exists anymore, unfortunately.
Right. Right. I remember when I was a kid, I went to, Bugaboo Creek
Yeah,
Steakhouse. Do you think you guys might have some talking animals there or anything like that coming
I don't
out
know
of
if we'll
trash
talking
cans or
animals.
anything?
We're definitely gonna let him to decide how they want it to be there. Again, we're going to try and bring the best farms possible that we can get our hands on,
Hmm.
and everybody votes their dollars. So I mean, every
Yeah.
time we look at that spreadsheet at the end of the week and things that are selling is what we're going to try and push more of. Um, I'm starting to make relationships with some fishermen too, so we're really
Cool.
proud of a fish and chips that we're going to do on the menu. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always. always interesting, especially when you're building a restaurant from the ground up. I've done it both ways. I've done the starting something out of the blue that didn't exist, and I've kind of come into restaurants that have existed for some time and kind of worked my way into their system. So to be able to not have any like pretense on how it's going to go is kind of
Mhm.
nerve wracking, but it's also kind of exciting at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, you've had, quite a bit of success, you know, uh, promoting your indigenous background and your Penobscot heritage. When did that start showing up in your cooking?
I would say there was little bits of it here and there. Pretty much every restaurant I worked at, I'd run a special from time to time, like a either whether it be fry bread, whether it be you know cooking salmon, but cooking it in a more traditional way.
Hmm.
Obviously, we're in Maine. You can't just throw moose meat and deer meat on a menu as much as I'd love
That'd be
to.
fun though. Yeah.
Um, so, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of unfortunately you can't do. But fiddleheads is always a fun one to do for a couple of weeks out of the year when they're available.
Hmm.
But really, it was up in Milo when um, at Three Rivers Brewing when the ownership there just allowed me to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, and gave me kind of the free range to just put whatever I want on the menu. So we did things like succotash, we did things like fried bread tacos, we did other specials throughout the year depending on what we were getting that were much more traditional in nature. And then there's also a lot of things that we eat every day that I would try and like show people like, well, we've been doing this for thousands of years. We just haven't gotten the credit for it yet.
Hmm.
So a lot of the news outlets and all the people that kind of want to write about food and that kind of thing really, really took to that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been kind of eye opening to see too, like how much stuff I assumed people knew. Because I mean, I grew up in Old Town, Maine, so
Right.
a lot of that knowledge that just exists there, I didn't realize until I got out of Old Town a little bit. Like, oh, people don't know this. This isn't a more of a thing I got to have to educate people about. So that was kind of neat to kind of see from a different view as I grew older and learned a little more.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, now it's the time for the Dusty Boots moment. This is the time in which our guests go over a time that was challenging to them and explain how they overcame it or how they viewed it as a learning opportunity or an experience that made them stronger.
Uh, I mean, I'm not sure if your viewership will know, but so like we ran Bissell Brothers Brewing up in Milo for 2 years, almost to the day, and then ownership decided that they were going to shut it down. Um, this is coming off from, a stack of different articles that were written about us, multiple Best in Maine awards, a James Beard nomination. I think we're also like um, the what's it called? The It was like the business of the county basically award. So we had a lot of steam, and to do it in less than 2 years to get all that clout was quite
Yeah.
you know unbelievable. So then to hear that it was all going to just end out of nowhere, considering the team that was built there and the community and everybody that really put in a lot of work was kind of definitely a tough pill to swallow because we all looked at it as all the people that worked there with me. We basically ran essentially a perfect restaurant. Everything from having almost a perfect score on Google to having every single person to come in, leave happy. Like that's the most
Hmm.
difficult thing to do. So, yeah, that was definitely a tough pill to swallow, but it also, um, being in the middle of nowhere in Maine is a hard place to run a business. So now it gave me opportunity. It's kind of ironic that we'll be hopefully opening in August here in Hampden, and we closed in August or last August in Milo. Um, so opening a restaurant, closing a restaurant, opening a restaurant, all in the same year, I would say would be a dusty boots moment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What kept you going through some of the toughest days?
Well, I mean, I would say a customers for sure. I mean, there were more people that showed up and either had never been there or just continually wanted to go there and support, even though they knew the place was closing.
Mhm.
Um, being nominated for the Beard Award prior to was also another big one. I mean, that's a life changing accolade to get. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but it's
It doesn't
still,
matter. It's you were semifinalist,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
that's all that matters, you know?
yeah, for sure. But it definitely, once that kind of accolade is hit, you kind of know I can somewhat write my own ticket now. I mean, we even before we found out we were closing, I had offers coming my way. I had people calling me that normally wouldn't. I don't even know how they would have gotten my number. I got
Hmm.
to cook at the White House twice, so I knew that my personal future was quite bright. So my big goal was kind of trying to get the rest of the team into a spot where they could all either find work in the industry or get comfortable elsewhere. That was kind of my big goal once we found out for sure that we were shutting down. And fortunately, almost all those people were placed. Actually, my younger cousin, he was just hired yesterday as our sous chef at
Nice,
the new restaurant, so he will be joining me. Who also worked with me up at Milo. So
nice, nice. Was there like a person or like a memory that reminded you to keep showing up?
yeah, it's kind of neat actually. So our working for the Sweat family, we both Caleb and myself, our grandfather actually worked as a mechanic for the Sweats for like 30 years. Prior, he passed away almost 13 or 14 years now. But yeah, I mean, he put in a lot of time for them as a mechanic, and now we're kind of that second generation taking on a different role, obviously, but
Hmm.
neat to like these pop ups that are happening in Orno at the brewery that he used to actually do everything from an oil change to an engine swap.
Yeah.
In my childhood, so it's kind of neat that that's it's a different course, it's a different business, but really neat to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the Sweats, you're obviously collaborating with them now, but um, very, great family in the area. But I know they have the Hogan Road Deli and the Sweats
Mm-hmm.
Tire Shop right there in Bangor on by Sam's Club. But what
Yep.
else? What else do they own?
So they also own Marsh Island Brewing, which is really the foundation of what we're doing. So Marsh Island's been around for almost a decade, I think 9 years now. Smaller brewery in Maine, however, certainly have made to their paces and become a very respected beer brand within the state that is completely inflated with beers, and
Mm,
it's really neat that they're as small as they are, and they hold it's all about what's in the glass, and they certainly hold their own
right.
um, up against all the other beers. And I mean, I say this coming from a very, very big brewery, probably the second largest in the state. That we had people coming from all over the world to try our beer in Milo, and to see on a Thursday night in Orono, Maine, that we have as many people at this small tap room is really, really cool and a great energy to be around.
Sometimes life gives you rain, and you know if you can turn it into a rainbow, that's awesome. But so you were named a James Beard semifinalist. What did that feel like personally? How did that change? I know you said that basically you can punch your own ticket, but what was that like? Was it a point in which, the top of the mountain, or do you still see yourself going higher?
Uh, yeah, I mean, for those who know me closely, it's something I had my eyes on for quite some time. I'm a bit of a competitive, some say arrogant person at
Good.
times. Uh, so yeah, I mean, it was a cool thing. It's an honor, obviously, but it's also one of those things like uh, I compare it to like when you're a freshman in high school, you're doing all the same things that every other school and every other student's doing, but
Hmm.
you're not quite invited to the parties yet. It's like now you're invited to the party. You're with
Nice.
your colleagues. You're you're part of the crew that you're kind of looking up to for most of your career. So yeah, that's definitely was definitely a big moment. But yeah, I mean, I personally want to win it, not just be nominated, but um, there's rumors that Michelin's coming to Maine soon. That would be something that would be really, really, on my agenda to get to. When it comes to beard, I think there was, when I got the call that it was official, it wasn't just like some prank on the
Yeah.
internet. They did inform me that I tied Grant Acotz, who was the chef of Alinea, as the youngest to ever be nominated. If I would have won, I
Wow.
would have been the youngest to ever receive it. Um, and then I think there was another asterisk with that too. If we had gotten it, it would have been the quickest to ever open a restaurant and get to, I think it would have been like 16 months or something like that,
Wow.
which is extremely fast paced for a town with only 2,500 people.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of firsts. So with that said, there's a lot that I'm very young in that space. So I would very much like to keep climbing that mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did it mean to you? Like obviously you did it personally, obviously there was a team, but like how was it like representing the Penobscot Nation at that level too? Getting that piece of your story out there as well.
Huge, because I mean, there's been a few other natives that have gotten it, but they're um, Western natives that nothing wrong with that or anything, but I feel like the Eastern tribes are very underrepresented, mainly because of Hollywood and just simple fact that our tribes are smaller. We're not quite. Um, we just don't have that lens that they do. So to be an Eastern as Eastern as you can get,
Hmm.
representation was really cool. But
Yeah.
yeah.
What uh what message does like your journey send to younger chefs or you know, or people that are just like hustling from small towns?
I mean, I'm from a very small town. Basically, just go after it. Get really comfortable with the uncomfortable. Yeah, if you can have a sick, twisted, whether it's a terrible job or not. I mean, there's a lot of things within the kitchen that's not fun. If you
Yeah.
can convince yourself that you're having a great time, then you'll go so much further in willingness. I think, especially I mean, I should have started cooking way before I did,
Hmm.
but I wasn't quite willing to take that lower pay or willing to do what it took. And
Hmm.
once I was willing, that's when things changed. So I think, we hear a lot about, uh, the 60-hour weeks or the 80-hour weeks, and a lot of people get
Yeah.
really scared of that. And so be it. That's if you want to take that route and work the 40 hours and hope for the best.
Hmm.
But there's somebody that's going to work 60 hours, somebody that's going to work 80 hours that will surpass you. And if it's
Hmm.
truly what you want, you have to be willing.
Yeah, absolutely. So like thinking about things, just piggybacking off what you're saying, your success, was it like talent, connections, or just showing up longer and grinding it out?
I would say a mixture of all those things, but definitely the grinding it out. Connections can only get you so far, especially in a place like we're in. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a very small pond, and even some of the successful people, um, all the respect in the world to them, but the
Hmm.
competition's not exactly great. And I say that, we have a lot of chain restaurants that somehow are packed every single week.
Hmm.
We have some mom and pops that struggle, and
Right.
everybody's saying they want a mom and pop restaurant in their town, and I really think it's all competitive. You need to look at what every restaurant's doing, whether it's a fast food chain, a fry basket on the side of the road. Like, consider everybody as
Hmm.
competition, regardless, and um, probably swallow your pride a little bit too. Uh, and all those things I think kind of create what the environment that you hopefully will be successful in.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're building a business brick by brick, protecting it matters too. From general liability to workers' comp to commercial auto insurance to even commercial property insurance. That's what I help workhorses do every single day. Feel free to reach out anytime at workhorseswin.com. Now, let's saddle up and get back to the show. So you've been doing pop-ups. I had some of your chicken, and that was amazing. And I had what do they call it? A shredded sandwich? What was that? The
Oh, the chopped cheese.
chopped cheese. That was awesome as well.
Yeah,
But while the Marsh Island Kitchen is still under construction, how's that been going? The pop-ups.
really well. We get a lot of feedback. The hardest thing for a chef to do is sit and wait. um, and obviously, building a construction, having a construction project going and building a restaurant takes time. It takes a lot of hands, a lot of great people that we're working with. But in the meantime, it kills me to sit and wait. So that's
Yeah.
when I proposed the idea to the ownership of like, why don't we just do, a menu item every other week or something to get people excited about it. And it also, the relationship we have with Pineland Farms has already started, so we can try out their products, see how we want to use them, figure out financially how this is all going to work too. I mean, everybody jumps into a restaurant and looks around at the area and says, okay, well, they're charging X, Y, and Z. That's what I need to charge. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Hmm.
You need to charge what's profitable for you and what's sustainable for your customers and a whole bunch of other things. And just
Yeah.
because next door is charging $10 or something doesn't necessarily mean you have to. You may have to charge less. You may have to charge more.
Hmm.
So those questions are being answered long before the doors open, which is a huge, huge advantage that most restaurants do not get.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So what's the dream for the restaurant once those garage doors swing open?
I would say a lot of things. I know the brewery side definitely, canning beer, shipping beer, having all these different logistical problems that exist in the craft beer space, somewhat eliminated because we'll be able to pour so much of our own beer on site and sell it direct to customer, which is the most profitable way to sell beer.
Hmm.
Certainly, as they're very excited about that, and I am too. And also, um, it just becomes a little bit easier in some ways, but it also gives us that much more volume, so you can be confident in buying kegs, buying ingredients to make this beer, and all
Right.
those cool things. So I'm very happy for that side of it. And then for the food side, I would say, really, I just want to be a place that anybody feels comfortable coming. Um, we are kind of marketing ourselves as a steakhouse, but not like white tablecloth. I mean, I feel like you should feel comfortable if you're a blue collar worker to show up in your jeans and have a beer and some wings, or if
Hmm.
you're retired and you live in the Hampden area or Bangor area and you want a nice night out with a steak dinner, then so be it. Obviously, we're going to try and highlight as many local farms as possible. So that can be anything from high end stuff that you would see in James Beard or Michelin starred restaurant to all the way down to, like you were saying, chopped cheese that's
Hmm.
sold at most delis and convenience stores. We're not ashamed of either.
Hmm.
They certainly just finding ways to respect and represent the farms that we want to work with.
I've been at some very fancy restaurants, and you know, sometimes it's felt like I was on an episode of Fear Factor or something like that. Some of the things I've eaten, and you know, but with that being said, anything like that you might include that might look like, oh my goodness, how am I going to eat that? But then when people taste it, they're like, wow, that's really actually awesome.
Um, Nothing comes directly to mind. Just before we keep going back to Milo, but
Yeah.
just before that project got done, I was starting to do a lot of sushi.
Mhm.
However, I have no experience in sushi at all.
There you go.
So it was all based out of just wanting to explore it myself and trying to find ways that people within that community would indulge in it. So rather than using like very expensive salmons and tunas and stuff that really aren't even that accessible to this area of Maine, we used smoked salmon instead. Um, and then other vegetable type ones as well, but did it in a much different style with different flavors that wouldn't necessarily be traditional Japanese or anything like that.
Hmm.
So that's something that we might see, just to that again. It's not a massively adventurous thing, but I think for some people that have never eaten that, this is a gateway to get there. And that's really kind of what I like to do, probably as an overarching theme is like, not everything is just because it's a really fancy name is that intimidating.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just giving people that extra push of like, try this once and then you'll like the next thing and the next thing.
Right.
And that's really how we built the menu to get people in the door and really the other part of that is just our approach. Like if we're going to buy something very high end like Pineland beef, we would urge you to not have it well done. We would urge you to have it
Hmm.
our preference and how it, and it's not the stubborn thing. It's showing respect to the farm and the animal and all the things that kind of are created within that too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I always I started out, with sushi about, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, and I had did the old California roll, and
Yeah.
that's been a gateway, and sometimes I get the weird ones, but I don't know. But it's awesome, So excited for that, when that comes through. I mentioned the garage doors. So hopefully I didn't let the cat out of the bag with that. But aesthetically, what kind of things can people expect about this new restaurant?
Well, the neat thing, so it's Mel and Tractor Works too that's building it. They've done an awesome job at building a place that's not only a bar, but also has a pretty decent sized, more, I wouldn't say formal, but I'd say more casual dining room.
Hmm.
And then also we have more of an outdoor seating area that's three seasons and covered. That'll be our patio area that I think will be kind of a premium, especially this time of year when it's a beautiful day out and the wind's blowing a little bit. So there's really three different particular spaces that are within this space that again we have no reference of how it'll all work because this is all from the ground up.
Hmm.
But I think it'll be one of the nicer dining rooms in the area just because it has all three of those elements of being able to serve multiple diners
Yeah.
and multiple types of people.
So obviously there's the pop-ups, but what's the best way to get a plate and support you before the full launch of the restaurant at the moment?
Yeah, it's really just the pop-ups at this point. I have other events kind of sprinkled throughout, leading up to our open date, but nothing that again, coming to the pop-up, going to Marsh Island any day of the week to try the beer and hear more and more about what we're doing is about the best way you can support us and following our social media, um, and voice your opinion if there's something where you're not seeing from our pop-ups and
Hmm.
something you'd really like to see, because that's another thing is we want as much customer um, and guest feedback as we possibly can get in the beginning, because once we open doors and we've already made decisions, it's very hard to turn back. So
Hmm.
now's the time to influence anything we could possibly be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Marsh Island, they're probably on Instagram and
Yeah,
Facebook. I think I follow them, but so there's Marsh Island Orono, which is probably that's the OG, the
yeah,
main, the main one, and then I know that there's already a page for Marsh Island Hampden,
yeah,
so all your pop-up schedules, stuff like that, as they come, are all available right there,
yeah.
basically. Okay, awesome. And when's the next one, and what are you planning for that?
So the next one's in 2 days, on
Oh,
Thursday, so May 1st, May Day. We're doing barbecue brisket, smoked chicken, mac and cheese, baked beans, and homemade cornbread.
geez, what's wrong with that? That sounds
Not
awesome.
much, not
Can
much.
someone like pre-order, or do you just kind of show up and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
you can definitely pre-order, but I would say this where we're actually at the facility now that it's much more better experience to just show up and get a plate and sit out on the deck and have a beer
Yeah,
or a seltzer or whatever you prefer and really enjoy it and meet the people involved too.
yeah. So this is going to be in Orono.
Yep, this will be
Okay.
at in Orono.
Awesome. Yeah, that's such a great spot. I would just say make sure you get there early and park well, but there's plenty
Yeah.
of parking. You just might have to walk a second, but that's what Orono is a college town. So, oh, wow. Big thanks to Chef Joe Robbins for sharing his ride today. He's not just cooking meals. He's building a kitchen. He's keeping the fire alive while the walls are still going up. And that's what a true workhorse does. Sometimes you got to serve plates under a tent before you open the restaurant you dreamed about. As always, thanks so much. I'm Charlie Longo, and tune in next time for Workhorses Win podcast.